All right, I'm working on something for the shop. This is Michelle from Seems Like Quilting, and I recognize that I have to trim some flying geese. And this is something that a lot of people um, struggle with. And, you know, there's a lot, and I mean a lot, of really awesome specialty rulers. We carry a couple different ones in the shop for trimming flying geese, but there's also a lot of ways to use your regular ruler to do that. What you want to look for in creative, this is a Creative Grids ruler, which I like because they've got these like non-stick or non-slip little grippy things on the back. But if you look carefully at this ruler, it's got a 45-degree angle coming up from the bottom and another 45-degree angle going up to the top here. And then right here, do you see this? These two cross over, and they cross over right at the 1/4 inch mark. So what people struggle with flying geese is when they sew them together, they either get them too far apart and have these like really wide spaces right here, or they get them, or they chop the tip of the geese off. The trick here is to have a 1/4 inch from just over the top. You want the 1/4 inch seam. You want the stuff that's above this is a 1/4 inch seam to be just over the top of that point. And there, like I said, there's a lot of different flying geese rulers out there, specific ones that trim them to specific sizes. But I actually really love to use this point on my Creative Grid ruler. And what I do is I line up right there my 45-degree angles on each side, and I put that point right underneath that, and then I trim the 1/4 inch. So that's what I'm going to do with these, and when they go together, they are going to line up just perfectly. Now here's the thing, I'm not just going to cut off the top. All right, now you're not going to trim off any of the width here, but I am going to make sure that the bottom is straight. I tend to do this thing when I'm making my flying geese where my bottoms tend to bow. I don't know why, they just do. But that means that I'm going to flip this, and using my main, now I'm putting my cut line on a ruler line, and I'm just lining up one edge so I have a perfect 90-degree angle here. And then I'm going to trim the bottom off. And then while I'm doing that, I'm going to check my two ends. And I want to make sure that my ends are not like, you know, crooked going off the side. So this bottom one is just perfect. I can leave the little dealy bob, the little taggy thing on there. That doesn't bother me. Some people trim them off because of extra bulk. But the top side of this one is about 1/8 of an inch wider at the bottom as it is at the top. And so what I'm going to do is actually turn it this way. And then again, I'm going to line up my cut ends. This is just perfectly 2 inches. So I'm going to line up my cut ends. I'm going to line up, get my 90-degree angle here, and line up to the actual like measurements of my finished or my unfinished measurements for my flying geese. And then I'm going to trim. And by doing that, by doing all that trimming, you know, I'm just going to take this like little thing off just to make it look nice. Okay, so by doing all of that trimming, what I have done is I've set myself up. Now, obviously it's not perfect, but I've set myself up to sew this. And when I sew these together, we'll imagine this was trimmed, and I sew this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I've set myself up to sew it so that my seam goes right above, just a stitch above that stitch line there, and bam, you watch, they're gonna line up just perfectly. Hold on and I'll show you. There it is. So you can see I haven't cut my point off at all, and I don't have like a big gap above it either. That's exactly how you want a flying goose to line up. Now I know people that would do anything not to pin, would do anything not to trim, but I'm telling you, the secret to flying geese and half square triangles is the trimming. If you figure out a method for trimming that works for you, you end up with a much better result in the end. And believe me, I don't have the perfection gene. If you don't care that you, then don't care. That's great. But when I'm making stuff for the shop, and shop samples, cause when I'm making them for me, it's like, sometimes I want them to be wonky. Sometimes I want them to be off. It's a design aesthetic, and I really like that aesthetic. But, when I'm making stuff for the shop that, I'm making to a pattern, I really want it to be as successful as possible to show people that it is possible. And it is possible to do it without being too overly precious about it as well. So just to point out again, to get these points to line up, what you need to really be looking at is your trimming of the block. And my blocks have a little bit more to trim off, because instead of trying to cut a 2 3/8 square, I just cut 2 1/2 and then trim. When I cut half square triangles and I cut for flying geese, I cut everything a little bit bigger and trim it away, because I'm going to trim it anyway. And I'll tell you, it saves a lot of aggravation. So there it is. There's our flying geese. Together, I've got a few more of these to make, and then, I should probably go to bed.